Hey guys, Jason up New Age Revolution down here. Kind of a breaking news, sad update from the wrestling world. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff has passed away at 71, and we always say this with wrestling deaths. You know, all the comments on the Facebook posts, or everybody's always saying, this one hurts, right? Or this one stings. And I've said that a few different times with some recent wrestling deaths. But Paul Orndorff, this one hurts. Paul Orndorff has been sick with cancer for years, for a few years, and he continued to decline. And sadly, you could see it, as he would show up at different interviews or different conventions or whatever over the years. Each time he appeared somewhere, he looked and sounded worse. And then, most recently, a few weeks ago, there was a horrible video put up on YouTube by Paul Orndorff's son, Travis Orndorff. And when I say horrible, I mean horrible because of what I saw. There's some back and forth about whether Paul Orndorff's son should have posted this video. I don't care about that one way or the other. You do what you want. I'm not here to judge anybody. The video, the content made me sad because it was about a 20 or 30 second clip. And it's out there. You can go see it. I think Travis Orndorff has pulled it down, but other people have captured it, and you can see it. It's Paul Orndorff in a hospital, clearly suffering from some kind of cognitive defect. I can't say dementia, Alzheimer's, because sometimes, cancer and cancer treatments will have a major impact on your cognitive ability and make it appear as if you've got, some form of dementia. But Paul Orndorff had very long, scraggly hair. Very, very thin, and very sick. He looked like a very sick old man. And, it seemed like he was having some memory issues, and Travis was asking him some questions, do you know who I am, and do you remember wrestling? And at one point, Paul Orndorff started opening the pepper packet from his lunch at the hospital and started eating it, just eating pepper alone. So that was very, very sad, to see anybody doing that, being so confused, that they would eat the pepper out of the packet. I assume Travis stopped him from doing that once he ended the video. But then a few days later, Paul Orndorff was released from the hospital, and another video from Travis Orndorff appeared where Travis was driving Paul Orndorff home, and while completely out of it, and very swollen, Paul Orndorff was singing along to a song on the radio. Kind of. And that was about 2 weeks ago. And today we find out that Paul Orndorff has indeed passed away. Paul Orndorff was a major part of my childhood. He came into the WWF right as I discovered the WWF. He was already, he already shot up their major heel rankings. He was already their top bad guy, and he was scary. Paul Orndorff was one of the wrestlers that I was actually scared of as a kid, because he looked so incredibly rough in the ring. you know, as a kid, you look at it one way. As an adult, you know what's going on, so you look at it another way, and you're like, wow, Paul Orndorff is really pounding on this enhancement worker, this jobber, if you will. Rough, like really, really rough. In fact, there was one match in '84, very early '84, where a very no-name jobber looked to have gone off script a little bit and started, I don't know, I haven't seen, I saw it about 2 weeks ago, but he kind of resisted a little, and Paul Orndorff just wailed on him, like pummeled him, and then gave him a stiff pile drive. I mean, just crushed him, all because the wrestler, the jobber who should get zero offense, tried to get a little offense in on Paul Orndorff, and Paul Orndorff was not having it, and he beat the tar out of him. And then, of course, he got into the, he was like a serious, legit threat to Hogan's title. And then the famous WrestleMania face turn, where now we have a good guy, Paul Orndorff. And even as a good guy, you're just like, it's kind of like when Randy Savage was a good guy, you're like, or when Ric Flair is a good guy. You're like, this doesn't feel right, and then came one of the biggest moments of my childhood, 1986, when Paul Orndorff, as a good guy, turned bad again. In the most predictable series of, teases. You knew it was, even as a kid, 86, I'm 10, right? I'm all of 10. My moronic brain, my moronic 10-year-old mind. Even I saw that the heel turn was coming as a kid. They spread it out over like 3 weeks. And then he turned on Hogan and joined the Heenan family again, and we've got the classic Saturday Night's Main Event steel cage match where they both land at the same time, and the best. Paul Orndorff was the best. When Orndorff turned on Hogan, I remember running to my room in a fit of rage and tearing the Paul Orndorff pinups off the wall. And my mom was furious with me because they were going to be collector's items, which they were, obviously. If I had legit pinups from magazines in 1986 still today, they'd be okay to have. They'd be some collector's items. So she was right. But she was mad at me because I tore them off the wall because he was a bad guy. I was so angry at Paul Orndorff. Well, we buried the hatchet. Paul Orndorff and I buried the hatchet several years later, and I've told this story before, and now I think about it more than ever. I was at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame when it was in Albany. When it was in, see, people are texting me. Paul Orndorff is dying, or Paul Orndorff died. Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame was in Amsterdam, New York, near Albany, and then it moved to Texas. But when it was Albany, I went there. I went to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and we were at the hotel, and Paul Orndorff was there. Jimmy Snuka was there. I don't know if they were being inducted or if they were just guests. I can't remember. But anyway, at the hotel, I was eating at the restaurant with my father-in-law at the time. And as we're eating, and I'm, knocking back a few brewskis, Paul Orndorff, Jimmy Snuka and his wife, Carol Snuka, are eating dinner in the booth across from me, in the table across from me. So I'm about 10 feet away from Jimmy Snuka and his wife eating. And so I'm like, oh my God, look, And then a few minutes, so like a few minutes into the meal, Paul Orndorff comes in and, hey, what's up? And says hi to Jimmy. And they sit down and now they're eating. And Paul Orndorff orders a dinner. And I'm just like, now I'm like 3 or 4 beers deep. And I'm looking at this table going, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. I will absolutely go down as a mark. You can pin me down as a super huge mark. Sure, why not? I can't believe that these 2 guys are sitting eating dinner across the table from me. So I say to the waitress, I would like their bill. I want to pay for their dinner. And so that's all done quietly, and it's done. It was like $89, right? And I didn't, I didn't want to brag, but I went up to the table and I said, hey, and they both looked up at me, what the hell are you doing? You're not supposed to interrupt us while we're eating. And I said, I just want you to know that your bill is paid for. And Paul Orndorff said in the most aggressive, angry way, "Bah-hoo!" That was Paul. "Bah-hoo!" And I said, "Me." And he jumped up. He gave me a hug over and over again. See, this, you get a little emotional. Gave me a hug. Jimmy Snuka jumped up, hugged me, shook my hands. Paul Orndorff, in the middle of the restaurant, insisted that we take photos together, right there in the middle of the restaurant, while they were eating. And I said, it's okay. They had the convention part the next day in the meet and greet. And he said, no, we have to do this. And he was directing the photos. He wanted to do a photo with his arm around me. Then he wanted to do a shaking hands photo. And Jimmy Snuka, too, obviously, was right there doing the whole thing. And that was awesome. And for $89, I got to live out a major moment. Then the next day, at the actual meet and greet, I got an they were all at tables, and they were all in a long. It was a bad setup. They were all in a long line behind a table, and you would just go to one guy and like drop your photo. And if you wanted a photo, you'd have to do one of those lean over the table deals, which I hate doing. So when I got to Paul Orndorff, he kind of did a double take, and then went, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And he was sitting next to George the Animal Steele, and he talks to George the Animal Steele, and he goes, "This guy bought me dinner yesterday." And George the Animal Steele was like, "Oh, okay." Well, Paul Orndorff writes on and I got to find these. They are somewhere. They are somewhere buried. I've got to find these. If I find them, I'll show them on another episode. But Paul Orndorff signed my autograph, like, with the most inscriptions I've ever seen anybody in my life. He wrote it to me, and then he wrote, "God bless you," or something like that, and then "best wishes," and then "your friend," and then "Mr. Wonderful," Paul Orndorff, and then at the very bottom, he wrote, "P.S. Thanks for dinner." And that's one of the greatest moments in my wrestling fandom life career. And I got to go find that photo somewhere. All of my autographed photos and pictures have all been put away in a box somewhere, and I got to go find that because I want that picture out now more than ever. Yeah, another one, guys. Another LJN has joined the rest of the LJNs in LJN heaven. So here he is. Major part of my childhood, this figure, and a guy that really brought it all around for me when he was so excited that I bought his dinner. And then of course in the last couple of days and weeks we've seen the sad deterioration. But ladies and gentlemen, Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, the best bad guy, one of the best bad guys of our childhood, is dead at age 71. We'll see you next time.